Okay, it is 7:33 on September 18th, 2025, and our village meeting will come to order now that we have a quorum. And the first thing we will have, standing up here, right here, he doesn't even have to move, is our village weatherman, Keith Allen.
Good evening, everyone. Nobody can complain about the weather today. And we had a couple of days of rain. I had an inch at my house. What did you have in
I
DC?
had an inch for the entire month of August at my house.
We all came in one night.
But that was what we just had, right?
Oh, that was September. Yeah, August. I
We're
only had 1
talking
inch.
about this month.
Yeah, I had about an inch.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that rain really basically was confined to Virginia, Maryland, up into New Jersey, still a serious drought up into New England and New York State. We're going to have a beautiful day here tomorrow, although it's going to be a little warm. No humidity, though. Up near 90, I wouldn't be surprised if some thermometers hit 90 tomorrow. And then it looks like it's going to cloud up a little bit over the weekend, but be cooler, 70-ish. And don't see any chance of any tropical storms or hurricanes. Maybe next week we can get some much needed rain here, but we had some welcome rain here the last couple of days. So that's the weather report. Marty, I know you have enjoyed the beautiful weather today. Talk to me, Marty. You're not muted, are you?
I'm fine, and yes, thank you, Keith.
I always appreciate you, Marty, and keep you happy. And I know you're happy to see Lynn here, like I am this evening. And you met Tom. So Tom, could you sign in here, please?
Oh, sure, I'd be happy.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Now we have time for residents to make their comments, and I will impose the Abraham Lincoln Gettysburg Address rule. As I had said last week, Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address in about 2 minutes. And unless someone has something more important or more eloquent to say, I'll ask them to try to confine their remarks to that length. So, anyone's hands up?
Yes.
Come up here, Lynn.
Okay.
Lynn.
Sign in up there, would you
Yeah,
please?
I'll do that. I'll get around to it. I presume all of you are subscribers to the new listserv.
Yes.
And so you've all seen the statement from Lorch.
I don't think I am, but
Oh.
that's besides the point.
Okay.
Okay. And then Susan Mitchell responded, said that this discussion is locked. And for some of us that don't participate in the listserv a whole lot and haven't paid much attention to it since subscribing, we're just curious about what that meant. And we got a definition that you don't discuss council business. And I've heard people talk that the council, the village needs a place for comments to the village on village business. I think this has been discussed before, and I'd like to know if the village council has discussed it and where it rests, because I know I'm not talking about it for the first time.
So, yeah, thank you for, we will be discussing the Brookville sidewalk in much more detail later. So when we come to that.
I'm not talking about the sidewalk. I'm talking about the village having on their web, there's someplace for closest communication to not go to the listserv, but to go to the council. A resident comment space on the village website.
This has been discussed a number of times.
And why isn't it there?
I'm not sure. We haven't felt the need for it. There are plenty of opportunities for people to contact us directly on the email listserv. So Marty, for one, has recommended this for many years.
Well, the thing is, when they contact you directly,
well, I'm the only one to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I think what we're striving for is a more open atmosphere. Right. This is his comment, or his thing was on the Brookville sidewalk, which is of interest to people that use it. Maybe a lot of village residents don't. But for items like that, it should be a more open discussion than than an email to any one of the village council members or through the village office.
Right. Yeah, it's an idea that's been floating around and we haven't picked it up. I think it's something worth discussion. Thank you.
What do you feel about that?
What about having a
A comment
comment section?
area section somewhere.
Well, I want to make a point
Go
of
ahead, yeah.
clarification. This is a comment period, not a point for you to call out individual council members and ask them their opinions.
There's just, it seems like
Like a bulletin board.
it seems like I or other people come up here and address a subject, and then it just falls dead. You never hear back from it. There's never any response. And I've been around long enough to know that this is the way it works.
Right.
And so if I'm out of line, it's because, in the past, there's no response. So what can I expect later on? In a day or a week?
Let me ask, there's somebody to be admitted, but Ron, let me turn this. Was there a legal reason of some kind of this as subject has come up before of having a comment board, discussion board on the village website or something associated with the village? And it has come up, it's been discussed in, I would say, desultory terms, but was there a good reason why we haven't done it?
Some of the reasons the council has cited in the past for not opening up sort of social media chat room or list server. Number one, someone has to monitor it and make sure postings are accurate or not inflammatory. So there's an administrative burden there. And also the Open Meetings Compliance Board has issued opinions that state emails among a quorum of council members are meetings under the Open Meeting Act. So it would not be possible for a quorum of the council to get on there without issuing notice under the Open Meetings Act that there's going to be a quorum of council on the chat room tonight.
Right.
So those are some legal and practical reasons.
Right, I knew these had come up in the past. Okay, thank you.
I would just comment,
Yeah.
sorry, no, Michael,
No,
did
go
you
ahead.
want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say those were the reasons
Yeah.
why we made clear that this privately run listserv was privately run. I'm not going to be commenting or responding to direct questions on there. It's not village business is not being performed on a private listserv. We made that very clear when the council last year voted to pay for this new listserv. It's a service that's run by residents for residents, and they are the ones that set those rules and lock down that individual comment that went out yesterday.
The only thing I would add to this, and I think we've floated this as a possibility, which could make this a rather, could be a useful tool, is that if you look at the county or even beyond the county, when there is a specific piece of legislation for county at ZTA, for us, it could be ordinance. Maybe there are some other things that would qualify where they do have an open commenting period where residents or anyone can comment and post it, and then it's seen publicly, but it's very specific to a particular area. So, I mean, we could look at very specific things where that would make sense because, again, having just a general commenting board, frankly, I appreciate it, but it may not provide the same utility or value than if it's around a very specific piece of content. I'm just putting that out there as that way you could have maybe some real utility.
Right.
If there is something that comes up, we do have historical precedent to lean on, the county and otherwise, of it's posted and then folks can comment. And there is, just putting in perspective, there's still an administrator in the back end that reviews it to make sure that the comments are, not just legitimate, but aren't using, profanity or things like that. So.
Okay, good, thank you.
An example of that would be the 5G thing.
Correct.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Or the school rezoning was also, I think, one that they would put up there. And also the library, if you remember, the library in Connecticut, they were talking about redoing that for a multi-use facility.
Second question. there was a certain amount of reserves, cash in the bank, Martin's Edition has. What is that amount?
It's in the treasury report tonight.
I'd like to have it spoken out by someone, so it's heard by anybody that's zooming in.
Roughly $5 million, 6 million.
I looked at the packet for today, and the financial report is in the packet.
Yeah.
And it came in at a
That's
little over
it.
6
That was
million,
it.
if I'm not mistaken, 6.1 something.
Okay, 6.2 million.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, there is this money available to the Martin's Edition to pay for the sidewalk. And then hopefully sometime in the future, those people who have been affected by it physically in their property, they'll get some sort of reimbursement for all their pain and suffering and inconvenience. So I think I've gone well
Thank you,
beyond.
Lynn. Yes, you've gone a little past Abraham Lincoln's
Yeah,
time,
but,
but
but also
Okay.
that included time taken.
Right,
by
for
the other
discussion.
voices.
I no take no. Okay, I think Marty's hand is up.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Arthur, and thank you, Lynn. That was interesting and helpful. Couple things, and again, I hope I don't run long. First, I want to thank Michael and the village staff, Michael Silliman especially, for moving the sidewalk project forward to the point where we're actually talking about pavement and a contract for a company to actually build the sidewalk. I've been waiting, and I think many of us have been dealing with that unsafe sidewalk for so many years. So, Michael, commendations and a big, big thank you for moving this project, getting the permits. It took a lot of patience and a lot of work, and just many thanks. It's a big safety improvement, a good way to spend $500,000, which we do have, as Lynn just pointed out. Second, I would like to welcome new members of the election committee, and our Alexa, our new council member, is going to be our liaison. And we still have an open space on the election committee. If anyone else would like to learn how local elections are done, we'd be glad to have you join us. Our election committee meeting is going to be open to all residents, and it's on this coming Monday night, the 22nd. So watch for that notice tomorrow in the Friday wrap up. And last but not least, I really do think that we need some mechanism in Martin's Editions where villagers can talk to each other about village issues. I understand the limitations on the current listserv. I was one of the people on the little team that helped create that listserv, and I really appreciate the fact that we have a new listserv that everybody can join. It's terrific. Yay, team. And thanks especially to Yasmina and to Susan Mitchell and Allison, who are the moderators now. I do think that listserv does not, at the moment, provide for the kind of public issue discussions that we're talking about. And Jeff, I was really happy to hear you say that you thought it'd be useful to have a message board on specific topics. I think that that's very helpful as a start. The issue, Arthur, as you pointed out, is that you could have 50 residents send the council individual comments about an issue, pesticides or whatever, and none of them would know that the others had written in because there's no public place for those comments to land to be seen by others. I, for one, learn a lot from discussions with my neighbors because a lot of our neighbors are pretty darn knowledgeable. And I think that it really is a missing piece here in our structure as a village, that we ought to have some kind of forum where we can address not just who needs an electrician, but how do people feel about issues. And I put that in the council's lap to think a little more creatively about how to do that. Maybe we need a listserv that is not run by the council, but maybe it's like listserv option B, where you can talk about village issues. But the missing piece here is the public discussion. And Jeff, I know you have championed in the past having regular community forums where people could get together on issues. But most of those have not been well attended because people couldn't get free on that particular night. So the idea of an open message board where people could have an ongoing discussion about issues, again, whether it's school, districts or zoning proposals from the county or pesticide use in our lawns, I think that is really a missing piece here it would strengthen our community, I think, substantially to figure out some way to have that kind of open message board where people can raise issues about village operations and ways to make it better.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands up. You can wave. Okay,
You can come up here and.
While you're coming up, I was just gonna, so one thing I throw out to others on the council is, we do have a survey coming up for VMA, and maybe,
Yes.
I think this could be a really great question to put out there to the community of just what might be some other ways or forum to, engage and just get it out there so we can get some more feedback on this issue.
good, thank you. Okay, now, we have another comment. Give just your name and street.
Oh, sure. Okay,
Yeah.
sure. So my name is Thomas Kirby on Turner Lane. I don't know if all the other speakers identified their street, but I'm happy to do that for you. No problem.
Go ahead.
May I go ahead? Great. So I just wanted to rise tonight and offer the perspective of a fairly newcomer to Martin's
How
Additions.
long?
I've lived on Turner Lane for about 2 years with my wife Yvonne, who's also here tonight. And I'll say that the listserv has been something that we have experienced in other communities. And whenever we arrived here, we're surprised that it didn't exist. Regardless of the discussion tonight as to whether or not another forum may be the more appropriate place to raise concerns, I can tell you that the listserv has had an effect of putting sunshine onto the actions of the council and of those here who are in control of the budget. One thing that I have learned is that I need to be more engaged. For instance, this past, I believe earlier tonight as well, it was raised that there's over $6 million currently sitting in the council to be spent. It also seems to me that we are spending that money. Primarily, it seems the things that have caught my attention are major capital projects that have gone on. The speed bumps, which began to be considered, I think, before I moved into Martin's Additions, and that the horse was out of the stall on that one. So we watched it happen. We're a bit surprised. Living on Turner Lane, you'll notice there's not really fast traffic. It seems absolutely unnecessary. And to me, I was starting to get concerned that there's spend occurring because there's money in the budget. And I don't know what the solution is to that exactly, but this latest thing that's become concerning to me are this sidewalk project, which again, the listserv worked because it added sunshine and made us aware of what's going on. And so I will admit that I came late to the speed bump issue. I'm coming late to the sidewalk issue. But that's mainly because the listserv is a pretty phenomenal tool that's now informing me and showing me, hey, this is something we need to be paying attention to. And so on the sidewalks, I know that I don't have a lot of time. I would just urge the council, given what I will share with you as a newcomer here, and just by the way, the fact that I came tonight, there's a lot more people like me out there who haven't shown up yet, and I would suspect that they might. And if I can just say, I think additional public engagement on the sidewalk project, given the unfortunate coinciding sort of initial censorship activity on this forum, I get that the bylaws are there and there's someone there acting to enforce those bylaws, but I'll say those actions to me, whenever I Google the name of the individual, I'm really happy that they're volunteering and serving in our community, but they are in fact volunteering and serving for the community. So that action of making a determination as to whether or not certain statements on the forum are in violation or are not in violation appear to me to be carried out in some respect by the council, or at least under its authority. And so I would just say that if that's not the case, maybe it's a coincidence, and I apologize for my misunderstanding.
Michael, that's completely separate from anything.
And see, this is the thing. As a newcomer, these are the sorts of clarifications that are really helpful for me. And so I appreciate that clarification. I would not mean to imply that there's something occurring that's not, but I'll just say that was confusing for me. Anyways, the short of this, and the only reason that I'm really rising is to say that the forum is working. It's drawing more engagement. It drew my engagement. I think it'll draw the engagement of others. And the thing that concerns me most is that we have these major projects that are going forward on infrastructure spend for speed bumps, which, I get it. That was out of the gate. I came late to that. But these sidewalks, it's like I'm hearing about it now, and it just seems to me ripe for further public input. And that, whenever you're saying a $500,000 spend, I know we have $6 million in the bank. That's great. But $500,000 is a lot of money. I think some additional public input would be helpful. I would urge you to do that. And I think there's, I'll leave it there because I'm out of time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, good. I will be addressing your issues in just a moment. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
I also want to speak.
Please. Go ahead.
Hi.
My name is Yvonne Garza. I also live with my husband Thomas in Turner Lane. I just came here to share a bit on the engagement side. I think that for us, it's the first time that we've come to this meeting. Before, we've been participating in some meetings when we moved in, and I'm sure that we need to be more engaged. But I found the listserv or whatever space very useful, especially for discussions that have been happening there that are not only references to services, etc., but for example, the discussion on the Montgomery County School District distribution was really valuable. And I don't really understand the difference between that, which is really attaining to all of our interests, and for example, a big project like the sidewalk. I think that if there's a guideline, maybe the solution is easier by just reviewing those guidelines and allowing, if that is the space that is working right now, to just open that space for open discussion on what is discussed here. Because honestly, we found the information on the village when we go to the website and we look at the writings of these meetings that you have, and then we find those documents, but it requires an exercise of going through the document and going through the document, and some people might not so easily find the information. So if we could maybe think together on ways and mechanisms to foster those discussions, I think it would be really valuable. As many of you have said, the neighbors in our community are really knowledgeable. There's a lot of interdisciplinary expertise that could be valuable for the consideration of those projects. And something that I've been thinking about is how can the village, if there is a budget, also offer other services that I clearly identify from living here 2 years as really needs from this community. Like, for example, assistance to our senior neighbors in services like gardening or nursing services or transportation to medical appointments. All of those are things that could be offered by the village and that could directly impact the lives of our senior residents and our neighbors that we care about. And right now, those services are being paid up to the expenses and the money pockets of all of these residents. So if there is some budget there, maybe we can think how we can amplify those.
Let me address that directly. The village does not provide those services, but we have offered to pay the fees, the enrollment fees in Chevy Chase at Home, which is a public organization that does provide those services.
Okay.
And in fact, that's true throughout the county. There's something like 30 of these non-governmental organizations that do that. And the county recognizes their value by providing a coordinator for that, for them.
And then the other thing that I've thought of is also like the need. I know that the village pays a lot of attention to the trees in the neighborhood, but there's some. We moved in here, and the first thing we learned 2 days after we moved was our tree on our backyard was a hazard. And so that was something that we didn't know about. And
it was a what?
A hazard, a potential damage.
hazard.
Yeah, for 4 of our neighbors behind because of how big the tree was. And it cost $12,000
Yeah.
out of our pocket right in as we moved in for something we didn't know. That, of course, is out of our pocket, but I think there's a lot of things with trees that are really costful, that having the help of the village in those things is not something that is only an owner concern. Of course, we were concerned for the liability we could have for our neighbors in case of damage, but it could also be very valuable because it's a way to secure our community. It's also a way of protecting our neighbors. We took care of it super fast because we were concerned for our neighbors leaving behind. So I think there's places where there's an urgency also to foster programs that are really up to protecting our village and our residents. And maybe we can think creatively about those. And I'm just here to say we plan to be more engaged, and we thank for all the work.
Welcome.
Thank
Please get engaged. Okay, any more? Lynn, one,
If I could just respond.
well, Lynn is coming up.
Okay, well, while you're coming up, Lynn, so I just want to respond. First of all, thank you so much. Just quick responses, and it deserves beyond this forum, but I think there is some really, helpful insight on the traffic patterns and particularly on Turner Lane, which I think we should have that discussion. I know Andrew, who isn't here, there's just a lot there that we could talk about. I actually was hit by a car on Turner, so I'm just saying that there are some things there that would be good to share. In terms of the tree pieces, which I think is a really interesting one, that hasn't come up in this particular space, but in addition to the annual survey, which we always put out there, to ask residents what new services, like we have composting and some other things. That's a forum. But again, just being able to come here, which we are so grateful because as you can see, the attendance isn't always like standing room. To have you here and share with us, that's really important because we'll take it under very serious consideration. The only thing was, that's on private property. So it's a little bit different than right of way, if that makes sense. So, but it's important because with the climate and the severe storms and things like that, this may become an issue that is, becoming normative for others. And we should put it in our annual survey to understand what the issue and what the problem is. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Lynn.
Doggy bags. There's doggy bags.
Oh, doggy
Yes,
bag.
doggy
Yes.
bags.
So there's some around town, the dispensers. Tuesday, I walked over to the town of Chevy Chase Town Hall for a presentation. And I noticed that they have dispensers where you can pull out the doggy bag, but then you also have a place where once you've put the doggy stuff in the bag, you can put it into that box that's there. It's a little bit bigger. And I think that's very nice. I only bring this up because where I live at the corner of Quincy Street in Oxford, there are many, many people that walk their dogs. And a certain number of those people just let it there wherever they dump, or they put it in a bag and then drop it in a recycle bin or just throw it in the bushes. And so this is a little more expensive item, but it's 100% job. And then of course, every now and then the box needs to be emptied.
Dog litter. Good. Thank you.
Can I just for 30 more seconds?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank Chair Alexander and Treasurer Blander for your feedback. Look, I think for me, any confusion that I'm showing about what's actually going on is simply the byproduct of this listserv having an interesting effect and engagement. And
We got you out here. Good.
and it got me down here, right?
Good.
So I just think that's something we should encourage. And it was in fact the viewpoints that were shared on that got me interested. Whether those are right or wrong, I think that's what we have to
Okay.
come here and learn
Good.
about. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And also, of course, on the projects that have been approved and future projects, there's a lot to learn about them. And I'm just suggesting further public engagement would be great. So that folks like me who maybe come in, a bit, confused can come in and learn more. And
Don't let your engagement stop
May I
with
ask
tonight's
a
meeting.
question?
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry, your first name?
Yvonne.
Oh,
Yvonne.
Yvonne. Okay, Alexa. The main thing one thing that I take from what you were saying was when you go to the village website, that it's not that user-friendly and that you want an easier way of getting information?
There's like many subtitles.
Yes,
right?
there
And
are.
So you have to find first I'm not right now with the word, but the written versions of the sessions
Yes, I'm
They are there.
familiar.
and what has been discussed, right, in
Mhm.
every meeting, but then to actually find the documents.
that's organized.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did that to find where the decision on the speed bumps was taken. And I actually was able to track that,
Yes.
but it took me a
It
while.
takes to
to
find
find it.
something
That's where
specific.
that's where we
Yeah.
realized it was a decision taken really by the time that we moved into the village. Like, oh, we
Mhm.
didn't know about this,
Mhm.
right? Because, and something that's really useful is the newsletter. Like the newsletter is really informative. I read it every
Mhm.
Friday,
Mhm.
the weather reports, all the information that's there, I think is really useful and really friendly presented. And the
Mhm.
system for the text is also great. But how can we create interactive engagement right now in topics that are really impactful for the village? That's
And when you say interactive communication, what does that look like in your,
Well,
what
actually-
is not happening?
Well, I think the public discussions of these big projects, right? Like if we don't see or we are not in track, and our example is a good example. Like sometimes we are toiling a lot for work, we're not here. For me, the newsletter is really informative because when I'm not here, I read the newsletter, I know what's going on,
Yeah,
even if that week I'm not here,
right.
right? But how can we go from announcing there's a village meeting in the agenda to actually saying, look, this is an important one. Maybe if folks have some inputs into this, here is like what we're discussing. You
Mhm.
can click here and we'll receive comments on A, B, C, and D dates, and have 3 sessions to do
Mhm.
that, because some people today, maybe Thursday is not the day that works for them because they have kid appointments or commitments, or the time doesn't work or whatever. There's a million reasons, but if you open 3 or 4 spaces or send inputs by written inputs, people
Mhm.
engage a lot in emails. Actually, the information about the school district, there was a neighbor suggesting, look, these are the points, this is what has been discussed, this is
Mhm.
some word phrasing that you might consider if you want to participate. And for me, it was really useful. We were not even here, and we sent the comments to the county, right?
Yeah.
Through that, like this.
I think this deserves further consideration.
Yeah,
We'll try to,
Yeah,
and happy to come up
Go
with
for
some ideas on how we could do it.
okay.
right?
yeah, because I think there's a tremendous amount of information on the website. It takes a while to get used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me a while just to figure out how to do that. And that's why I use the word user not so friendly, maybe, but
It's there, the information.
It's, you
just have
gotta
to
look.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
not-
it is there,
Yeah.
exactly. It may
Yeah.
not be
Sometimes you don't know
easy,
what
but
you're
it's
looking
there.
for till you find
And I
it.
think sometimes people think that the council is not providing information when it's just not found yet.
Yeah.
It's there, but it takes
On the
work.
sidewalk,
Okay.
The presentation of the detailed drawings from the people that worked up the design,
Mhm.
all the pages are there.
We understand that it's difficult for the village to make some of these announcements because they are somewhat viewpoint oriented, like the school district thing. And that's why it might be difficult for you to sort of proactively give some of that information, but there's certainly engagement information that could be transmitted. But that's one of the values of this listserv is that some people are able to share viewpoints, but now they're no longer being allowed.
Yeah, at this moment. Okay, let's move on. It is time now to consider one of the subjects that's been coming up, that's the Brookville sidewalks. So I wanted to begin the discussion with a little bit of the history. It didn't just pop up today. It started appearing about 5 years ago. The village created a walkability committee because we had a task force, because we had a lot of resident comments and complaints and discussions about the state of the sidewalks, the traffic, speed, and was there something that could be done about it? So we formed this task force in 2020. And first thing we did was hired a city engineer, Chris Kubiak, who had worked with the village before on coming up with the building code. So he was very familiar with all of the very great detail of the village. And the first thing he did, he came and he kind of walked the streets and he went to all the different sites. And he came up in the very first meeting of the task force with a first preliminary report. And this was in April of 2020. And he noted how important Brookville Road is to connect to the playground, to the shops here, up and down to all the streets. It's the only through street, north-south. And he called the sidewalk substandard. And the first thing he said is that this is not doing the job. It's not safe. It's substandard. A few months later, the task force had a survey of residents. And one open question, an open-ended question was identify areas that present the greatest safety concerns. Overwhelmingly, the Brookville sidewalks was named. It had the highest number of hits, the highest number of comments. And then throughout that survey, people kept coming back to the degradation of the sidewalks, the lack of curbs, the crumbling of them, the narrowness of them, the speed of the traffic coming by. And then in their report that came out a few months later in early 2021, they called Brookville, and I have a direct quote, Brookville Road is described as a pedestrian nightmare. It represents a true danger to pedestrians. And then they said their leading recommendation was to rebuild it. Immediately, our village manager at the time, Niles Anderegg, contacted a company that does this sort of thing, the Traffic Group. It's a national company, but they're headquartered in Baltimore. And they came down and presented a design. And they submitted that design to the State Highway Administration. in May of 2022. And we got a reply from the state, thank you, we have these problems with it. Then Michael came on and has been dealing with those problems ever since. So this goes back more than 5 years and has been identified as a key area of concern, something we focused on, something that we have been planning to doing something about for 5 or 6 years now. So Michael.
Yes, thank you for the background. Before I got here in the fall of 2022, which is now 3 years ago, this project was well underway. We already had a conceptual design of the sidewalk from the traffic group. I set up meetings with the State Highway Administration when I first started here. Andrew Cowders isn't here tonight, was the chair at the time. So we actually met with the State Highway Administration, went through actually walked the sidewalk together, talked about how difficult some of the situations are there, how deteriorating the sidewalk was. This is in 2022. And I've counted, 10 or 13 different steps that we have done to get to this point. The walkability task force, the traffic groups, conceptual design, meetings with SHA, that's the state, the survey that you mentioned. And then we conducted a traffic study to include a recommendation for a new crosswalk and controlled stop sign at Bradley Lane across Brookville Road. So that traffic group was a separate thing. We then hired Jason Azar, who's our current engineer on the project. That was quite a project to select an engineer that would be good for the job. And then we conducted a survey of the entire length of the sidewalk. It's over 1,600 feet long, along 16 different properties. So kind of a unique situation here because it's a state highway connecting lots of different streets. The only way for pedestrians to connect to the main part of the town and the shops here. We did draft easements for a number of properties where we realized we would need a little sliver of their land. There's 6 of those easements we drafted. We did hold a public engagement meeting where we invited the engineer to come meet with all residents. Lots of people attended that. That was recorded and is on the website. So that was quite a community engagement thing. And then we also, after that, held one-on-one meetings with specific property owners along the stretch of sidewalk that have maybe some tricky, design things related to their sidewalk, or maybe there's a retaining wall adjacent to it. So we held each of those meetings with the engineer and with the residents. We have obtained 5 waivers from the state, or maybe 6 waivers to go down below the 5-foot required for ADA accessibility issues, in order to avoid private infrastructure projects. So people have fences, people have retaining walls. We actually were able to get the state to approve each and every one of those waivers to go around a few tight spots and go down to 4 feet, which is the federal minimum. You can't build a sidewalk less than 4 feet at the federal level for ADA accessibility reasons. So we actually got those waivers. We were very excited to get those waivers. We got the signed easements back from all but one of the property owners so far. We drafted an RFP that's 125 pages long. It's posted on the website. We posted it on the state's procurement website to try to have a competitive bidding process to select this paving contractor that we're trying to hire right now. That RFP is still posted, and we did receive 8 bids. We held a pre-bid meeting with several of the paving contractors that were going to bid on this project. That was just a couple weeks ago, and we have obtained our permit from the State Highway Administration with some requirements built into that. We've also applied for a permit from the county for sediment control so that we can, during construction, can make sure water quality is good as water leaves the site during construction. So that we haven't gotten that permit back yet, but we're confident we will, and we've applied for it. So that's a lot of things that have happened so far that brings us to today, which is to select a paving contractor. This is not the end of the process. We're not done. Actually, I have a list of next steps once we hire a contractor. That includes today, which you have in front of you on page 2 in the packet, is a letter of recommendation to the council from Jason Azar, our engineer. So maybe we can pick that up and then I can talk about the next steps and the timeline going forward for this project. But I can pause
Just
there.
before we get to that, mention two things. The village of Chevy Chase, for those people who've lived here longer than 15, 20 years ago, there used to be no sidewalk south of the village when you get into the village of Chevy Chase. There is now a sidewalk there. It took them 25 years working with the state and historical commission. They had to work, there was an extra complication because some of the structures there date back to Revolutionary times. And so the moving a fence required the State Historical Society, or I think it is, to get their permission to do that. So I figured 5 years we've worked on so far doesn't compare to the 25 years the village had. One other thing, I asked Michael Tate, how much does it cost to repair a sidewalk that's already in place, that's there, doesn't need new curbs, doesn't need new roads, doesn't need to deal with the private infrastructure along? And you could just mention one on Bradley that's being done now. 4 blocks, is it 4 squares of sidewalks?
Yeah, it's about 20 feet of sidewalk on Bradley Lane that's currently torn up as a tree fell on it and broke several pieces of it. You can go see it right now. It's all formed up right now. And that's costing us $6,000 just to repave those.
So when we think about 1,600 feet versus that little feet, and plus all the work in the roadway, the side structures that go on to residence structures that we have to deal with, the walls and the fences and so on, plus the roadway itself that we have to work with and the new curbs. It turns out that this is, I won't call it cheap, but it's we're getting our money's worth.
And also, yeah, it has been eye-opening for me as taking on a project like this, and this being the number one thing on my work plans that I've submitted to the council every year of my priorities for the year. This has been the number one priority, and it's really hard. It's really hard to do good things for people. It's really hard to even just rebuild a sidewalk that's already there on a very, very old road. There's lots of issues we've run into, including the survey points where people say the corner property lots are and stuff aren't necessarily where they say they are. So each step has thrown up new lessons and opportunities for me to learn. So we've come a really long way, and we still have a long ways to go. So, and that will include, public engagement at every single step. Yes, Jeff.
So I just want to comment briefly here, but first of all, I just want thanks. This is actually extremely helpful because there's a lot of stuff. Well, I've been on the council for a while. There's a lot of there's some details here, but I'm kind of refreshing myself, and I can only begin to imagine what it's like for some folks who are recently, resident. So first, let me ask, this is being recorded, is that correct?
Right.
So we will have a narrative, and you can hear for the record as a volunteer. When that comes out, I think be helpful for us to put together kind of a synopsis of this, as I wouldn't necessarily call it a formal rationale, but just, I think, so folks have this, and there may be some other information. I know there were some standards that we were not in compliance to. So just in general, there is a why, because completely concur. I mean, historically speaking, I've been treasurer for a few years, but, Arthur has had that reign for a while, and we've been very, very conservative in terms of things. So all of a sudden, when you see a budget line item, like you're saying, for $500,000 or more, that's like, wow. And so I would want to have more information. So I think we could do that and post it. And I know Ron is here, but we have issued things. I'm not saying it's the same apples and oranges, but like, for example, the ethics ordinance and things, the council has worked to come out with a statement on kind of a justification or a why. And, it might be helpful that we just put out maybe a summary of all this great information so that it's out there. The other thing is, as you mentioned, again, I don't want to take up too much real estate here, but I think it's important, is there an opportunity, as you mentioned, there may be multiple steps. Is there some way for us beyond what we already do? I mean, I know we do a lot, right? We've got emails, anyone could reach us. Obviously, they can come to meetings, you send out newsletters, but, I don't know. For this particular issue, which is a large capital investment, is there something that we might do? I love your suggestion of, here's a topic, do you have more inputs? And that way it's highlighted as a special topic. And this might raise to that bar. We don't put $500,000 or more into something every day. And maybe this is one of those special things that we need to do that for.
Or
So,
even, I don't know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like maybe as a short video, like if the council could explain briefly in a video that could be added to the newsletter, like explaining this is a project that we're doing. It doesn't have to be all the documents, but look, this is the history, this is what we're doing.
So that's a great point, Jeff. We totally should write up the summary and post it in different formats. I totally agree with that. And you can see why this doesn't fit in a listserv format. There's a lot of history here. So responding to, listserv comments isn't maybe the best way to go through all this all this information. So yeah, I agree. We will continue to find more opportunities to share out this information.
One more thing before you get into the contract. I was going through the cost we did some repaving back in 2017 and 2019. And it was, I was the treasurer then, it was the largest check I'd ever signed, I think, for $740,000. And then about 2 years later, we'd finish up the rest of the village as the utilities were completed for about $263,000, $1 million altogether, which in 2025 dollars would be about 1.3 million. So that's what it costs to do infrastructure, just for comparison.
I do want to, again, this is part of that historical knowledge, but unless you're in the weeds, it isn't something that comes to the top. But as long as I've been on the council, and it's been about 6 years now, on page 12, there is actually, we'll get to this later on the treasurer report, but there's a line item there. First, it's total current assets, and then there's a line item underneath, which is investment reserves, walkability streets and other, and that's $1.5 million. That has been there every year for the 6 years that I've been here. So just putting in perspective, that just, showcases, I think this has been a priority for a while, but it's taken a while to get to a point where we're ready to act on it as well.
Okay, Michael.
Okay, I do want to mention, it looks like Klaus's hand is raised. Would you want to take that comment?
Yes, please.
Yes, first, sorry that I show here under a photo of my wife.
Okay.
So,
Klaus, I hate to say it, but I think I may prefer that one.
yeah. Okay. I have a question about the costs, since this is a key issue, right? So as Arthur and Michael know, I've many times through email inquired what the estimate of the total costs are. And first I was told there is none, and then I was told there is one, but I've never been told what the full estimate actually is. Now, I understand that the low-cost pavement contractor contract would be $485,000. I also was told that already committed have been about $100,000 for the easement compensations, survey, engineer, and so forth. So that brings it close to $600,000. Now, the term pavement contractor makes me wonder, how much additional cost do you estimate will still come up to rebuild walls, rebuild fences, restore landscaping, other things I may not know, rebuilding water meters, I don't know what other things come into play. So beyond the 600,000 that's already on the table now, how much more do you estimate the cost will be? Thank you.
That's a good question.
That's a great question, Klaus. Thank you for that. And, I was resistant to provide an estimate or speculate on what the cost might be. The engineer had told me that the cost for this paving contractor would be somewhere between 500,000 and 1.5 million, which is a huge range, which I didn't want to just tell you because that's not really satisfactory to anyone. And we were also in the process of getting bids. So you might as well wait a couple weeks and then we get the actual numbers. And sure enough, the numbers are slightly, or really close to that, 485,000 at the cheap end and 1.6 million at the high end here on page 2 in today's packet. This bid is all inclusive. This is supposed to cover everything. The removal of a wall or the building of a wall or any sort of landscaping. So this 485,000 should get us there across the line. Everything else, the engineering fees, the easements we've agreed to pay to a couple residents, including you, are in that 100,000 that I estimated that I did provide to you. So everything else should be included in there. Now, construction projects always go over budget and there's always issues. So if they have to, tear up a section and redo it because they messed up or something like that, there's a chance there will be, additional add-on costs. But this is the total cost that we foresee paying at this point. This is everything.
That we will probably add in some contingency parts of the budget because there could be requirements from the state, from the county that we're unaware of now. Michael said we have the sediment control plan into the county. They may require things that we're not planning on or may be unusual. But other than that, this should cover everything. Okay, do you want to go through the clause? Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you on that answer, but I have one other question, sorry.
Sure.
At some earlier discussion, when I raised the question, I was given the answer that just fixing the sidewalk would not be permitted by the State Highway Administration, is therefore not an option on the table. Now, from what you said a few minutes ago, it sounded though that it could be potentially on the table. So does or does not the State Highway Administration potentially permit the fixing of a sidewalk? Thank you.
You are allowed to repave like specific sections if there's specific damage done. So when a utility company comes in and digs a hole in your sidewalk, you're allowed to repave it, those types of things. But the sidewalk, every engineer we've talked to has said the sidewalk is beyond repair. You're not going to be able to just re-pour one section or two sections. You're going to have to tear down the entire thing and rebuild the curb itself. Huge sections of the sidewalk does not currently have a gutter to allow water to flow down it. Huge sections of this do not have a standard 6-inch or 8-inch curb. So you can't just re-pour something that is inadequate. The sidewalk we know is not up to accessibility standards at the federal level, let alone at the state level, which is more stringent. So for this case, no, we couldn't just, fix the sidewalk or re-pour it as is. We would actually have to redo the entire thing.
Good, thank you. I see there's one other hand up there.
Paula
Decio, please.
Paula, do you have a quick question?
You're muted, Paula.
Sorry. This is a very good discussion. I can see how much work goes into each detail, and I'm very appreciative of that. I walk up to Brookville Market quite a bit from Quincy Street, and I usually have to walk on the other side of the street. Two people cannot walk on the east side, on the Martin's Addition side, at least unless you're one behind the other and yelling at each other. So I think it's a great undertaking. My question is, how about the traffic flow when this is under construction? There are lots of school buses and an awful lot of rush hour traffic, morning and evening. Is that included in the contractor's work?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That's a key part. Michael, why don't you address that?
Yes, thank you for this question, Paula. That's a great one. The lanes are currently wider than they're allowed to be. So the minimum lane width is supposed to be 10 feet. At some points along this roadway right now, they get out to 11 feet a lane. Arthur and I were out there with a tape measure, measuring it at 22 feet from white line to white line at points. So as part of this project, we will be narrowing both travel lanes to be that 10 feet. So traffic will flow at us, hopefully.
Traffic control during construction.
Yeah, I got that second point. First point is we will actually be adding traffic calming measures to this project. So one
Okay.
is narrowing the lanes. Two is adding the crosswalk and stop sign at Bradley Lane. And then three is we will be installing a county standard 6-inch curb for the entire length of this thing so that cars stop just kind of driving over the curb. If you're walking near the corners right now, there's a chance a car is going to swipe you as often is the case.
Yeah.
And since I've been here, 3 cars have gone over this sidewalk and rammed into walls on the backside of that sidewalk. And there's broken retaining walls up and down this sidewalk from cars going over the curb and just running into the walls. So this is a very dangerous situation that we're aware of. So those 3 things will make the roadway, will provide some traffic calming measures in the long run. During construction, State Highway Administration only allows for construction hours to be from 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. So that's a short work day for our crews out here. The crews that bidded on this project were all aware of that, and they will all be providing traffic control during those hours of work. Those hours of work are not during rush hour. They're not when school buses are coming through, intentionally on purpose. And they will be closing a lane for most of during this work. So they will be closing our side of the lane, the northbound traffic lane, and allowing cars to go, one way behind a traffic control flagging team. That is included in their bid. Providing traffic control is included in that cost. The other thing the State Highway Administration just last week confirmed that would be okay is to actually go down to 9-foot lanes during construction. So that is a total of 18 feet, which means the crews can build a 2 or 3 foot buffer on our side of the street. So when they pour a new curb, there's not cars, at 3:30 that afternoon running within 1 feet of it or something like that. So we're talking about restriping the road and moving the lanes over for during construction. So it's going to be much tighter towards section 3, so that we have room to work for the duration of the project.
That's very good and sensible. If you could pull off the miracle of diverting traffic to Connecticut Avenue instead of Brookville Road, beyond the construction period, that would be even better. Okay, thank you.
I'm good, Paula, but I don't know if I can do that.
Michael, could you remind folks the estimated length of time the construction will be underway?
Yes. The request for proposals, which is on the website and posted, says that this project is going to be done by April. So that's the timeline that this contractor believes they will complete this project.
Starting when?
Starting when we let me get there. So that's the timeline the contractor thinks they will have until we have our permit from the State Highway Administration until the end of June of 2026. So this is by next summer, this project is going to be done according to the permit. I don't want to get into the business of trying to extend that permit. So that's the end timeline. When the next steps after we approve this contract are, you have your letter of recommendation here on page 2. We will approve the contract hopefully tonight. And then I will issue a notice of award to the contractor that wins this bidding process, but then also notifying all the other bidders that they were not selected. Then I will secure bonds from the company that wins the award, just performance bonds to make sure that, they have everything. I will double check their business license. I will get them to sign a contract that Ron, who's still online, will help me with. We will then build a construction schedule with them about when they start, what days they're working, when they're going for the holidays. There's things that are going to come up, like you can't pour concrete if it's below 32 degrees. So there's a chance in December they're going to have to stop work somewhere. So we have built into this contract that they are going to do 1 block at a time. So if they can do half of it and then they quit for the winter and then they come back in the spring to finish, that's might have to happen. So we will work through the schedule with them. We will review and sign that contract with the council. And then we still need that Montgomery County sediment control permit. We will then issue a notice to proceed to the contractor saying, we have all the permits, everything's in line, go ahead and proceed. Then we will, and before that, actually, we will still need to get the final check off from the State Highway Administration saying it's okay to proceed. We will need to have pre-construction meetings with the State Highway Administration. We will need to have separate pre-construction meetings with the County Sediment Control Inspector, who we know, and then we can issue the notice to proceed. And at the earliest, best case scenario, that is the first week of November.
Put it on your schedules.
So write it in pencil, maybe.
Let me ask you one question. That was very helpful, and I know this will be part of this narrative that we can pull together and use our good friend ChatGPT to help us with the first draft. Question: this particular vote tonight, how much of that vote for the paving contractor is contingent on these other what are seemingly mission critical pieces of things that still are not completed yet with the county? So I'm just trying to understand what are the critical dependencies going forward, and is this particular vote mission critical, right, or not? And I share that because we have two council members who aren't here.
Correct, yeah.
And I don't know if we had taken votes or gotten their proxies beforehand, but this is obviously one of the biggest projects that we will ever undertake, and it would be good to have that occur. And then I'm just trying to understand, like, for example, there are good points around, let's have more information. So I really want to ask, what if I say, I want to wait until we have a full body here, and what happens if we wait till October to do this? What is that? Does the whole thing fall down, or I'm trying to understand that?
Yes.
Great questions. I believe this is Susan Faddick online with the phone number. Is that right, Susan? Is that you? I'm not sure if that's Susan's phone number, but I believe Susan was planning to call in tonight. Andrew had a work event tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm not questioning why people aren't available. I'm just putting, is this vote holding up everything?
Yes.
And I want it, why is that? Like, is the county depending on us submitting the details of who is the contractor to get the permits?
No, we're running parallel paths, trying to get the permits finalized through while doing this selective bidding process. We do have timelines, and these contractors will have to fit us in around their other jobs and think about if it's going to take a month or 2 months, and if they can do it before winter, or if they're doing half of it before winter. So there's a lot of moving parts here. We're trying to build a puzzle all at the same time.
But they can't do anything until these permits are in place.
Correct. Yes.
So even if
they can start
they can do
scheduling
the
things and stuff,
They
and
can
start.
do their scheduling.
But we told them that we were going to have this discussion tonight, and that we were hoping to award the winner of this bidding process tomorrow. So that's what I've told them. If it's going to be delayed by a month or 2 months, I will need to do some damage control with them, to tell them, it's going to be, we're moving the project back, which means the deadline, if we're giving them 6 months to do this project, we might have to move it back to May. Then we're running up against the permit, in June. So we are kind of trying to move this project forward. And I would hate to see it delayed. But if that's what it comes to, I did think Andrew was going to join the call to try to vote for this. As you all know, he's been the biggest advocate for this, and even ran on this the first time on the walkability stuff in 2020. And so I know he wanted to be here to vote for this. So it's unfortunate that he couldn't be here tonight. And I believe Susan was going to join online.
That is Susan's phone number.
Okay, Susan is here. Maybe she doesn't know how to unmute her phone.
Well, Susan, if you hear us, unmute yourself. But Marty has her hand up. Let's get to Marty, and then we'll try to move on. Marty?
Yes, thanks, Arthur. And boy, thank you all, and Michael and the entire crew there for this incredibly informative discussion. I have one just procedural question. Michael, this sounds like a great plan. Good timing, good luck on all of it. Is Azar, our engineer, going to be involved in supervising the paving contractor?
Yes, Azar will be involved throughout the duration of the project, and I will be managing the contract with the paving contractor.
That sounds like a great team. Go for it. Thank you so much for all this work. That's
Thanks,
it.
Marty.
Thank you.
And if we can talk about the actual proposal that's in front of you today, and you all can decide how you want to proceed with it. We were very worried about not getting enough paving contractors to actually bid for this project, because we did want it to be a competitive bidding process so that we could get the best price for the village. And we're very happy to get 8 bids, though they are quite spread all over the place. And the kind of standard operating procedure is to start with the cheapest one and to see if they meet all of the qualifications. On page 4, you will see the breakdown of all of the different kind of check marks that we went through for each contractor, just to see, you know, that they met all of the baseline requirements, and all but 2 did. So there's 2 kind of in the middle ranges there, did not meet all the qualifications. So then once that we figured out who the 6 companies that did meet the qualifications, we started with the cheapest one. And we actually have some prior reference knowledge of this company, SFMS LLC. That stands for Superior Facilities Management Services. They are based out of Gaithersburg, and they have done projects in the area before. They have worked with Jason Azar before, that we weren't aware that they were going to be applying for this project. So I went ahead and called one of their references, who I know personally. That's the manager, Barbara Matthews of Garrett Park. They have recently redone the sidewalk in front of Garrett Park. They have redone Garrett Park's village office, and they have redone all the curbs, repaved all the roads. They've done it last year. They completed a very large project for Garrett Park, and that came back with a glowing recommendation. The manager there said they would work with them again, that they worked incredibly well with the residents, and that they worked incredibly well actually with concrete specifically, that they were very, very good with concrete work, no crumbling afterwards or anything like that. They had some issues with them as related to scheduling, mostly because they were repaving the roads. So they had to get the communications right to get all the cars to move out of the way so they could pave. And then sometimes they dealt with weather issues. So it would rain and then they couldn't come, but they didn't tell all the residents. All the residents had moved their cars for nothing. So that issue won't raise itself here because there's no cars parking there. And they reportedly do really good work. So with that reference coming,
mention the engineers in Garrett Park thought they did that they were very professional in there.
Yeah, Garrett Park does have on staff a facilities maintenance team, so they're already out there filling their own potholes and stuff, where we have to contract a lot of that out because we're so small. They actually have a staff up there that do that in-house, and they were very impressed with the work. So it wasn't just from the management up there, it was also the on the ground crews were impressed with their work as well.
I understand the work that you're referencing was done relatively recently.
Yeah, they completed that project up there last year. And they told me that they don't subcontract out any of the work. It seems like all of their workers for this company are in-house. They have all of their own crew members. They have all of their own paving contractors. They have all of their own equipment, all of that stuff. So that is encouraging, and they were the cheapest. So with that recommendation and Jason Azar's recommendation here, it's my recommendation to the council to go ahead and approve this paving contractor, allowing us to issue the notices starting tomorrow and notifying everybody. The other thing that I'll say is procurement process in the state of Maryland are very complicated, and there are a lot of government watchdog agencies that have been contacting me asking for public record of these types of decisions, and including the bid tabulation that you see there on page 4. So I have been providing those as they come in. Those kind of amount to a FOIA request or Freedom of Information Act request. So I've been providing this information, and once we make a decision here, I'll need to explain that vote to like 15 different people tomorrow. So I have my work cut out for me. Whatever you all decide.
Just before we get to council review and approval, I see Klaus has his hands up once more.
Yes, sorry.
Frau Klaus or Herr Klaus?
Because it relates back to the discussions earlier in this evening's meeting about censorship and a forum for discussion and so forth. So, of course, a 2-month delay would get us deep into winter, etc. I understand. But what stands in the way of, let's say, having a discussion space for 2 weeks where citizens can really feed in and feel comfortable in the end that the $600,000 are well spent? Don't think 2 weeks would be prohibitive. And then have the full council together, all 5, make a vote at that point in time. But in the spirit of actually having genuine citizen engagement, why rush this now in the coming minutes?
It doesn't feel like a rush to me because I've been working on it for 3 years, Klaus, but I hear your point.
Do I have, Alexa, do you have any comment on that?
I guess I'm just very surprised that at this date that it seems so many people seem so surprised when this effort has been going on for 5 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I appreciate if someone's coming new to something, but the information has been available for quite a while.
Yeah, well, it's been on our agenda for almost monthly for the last 5 years. Jeff, you have a comment? Thought?
Sure. Whatever I say, I know is not going to make everyone happy. But first of all, I deeply appreciate the historical context, the incredible work that has gotten us to this point to be able to make a decision. I truly do. I mean, and I get the safety issue as much as anyone. I also hear very loud and clear. I truly do. Right, for those who are new residents who, take their time to come here to voice, and I also hear some of the folks their voices. And again, this is not stating anything about reasons, because believe me, I'm the last one because I know I've had the same things where there are things that you just have to do, and sometimes you have to either miss a meeting or come in late. So I want to put that out there. But we are short here. So I say I'm compelled in a responsible way. And I think what was brought up is, I think we have information we can compile. And I said, I will offer to do that. So it's not an unnecessary burden. I think it would be reasonable to put that together and maybe send out a pointed announcement or a pointed thing that goes out that says, here is a summary of the historical and the rationale and the process of this project, which is, by all accounts, it sounds like this could be the top 2, certainly 3 most expensive capital projects this village has ever undertaken. And I don't think we have to wait 2 months. I think this could be something that, if we need to, Ron, you could clarify for me. This could be we could do a special vote. We could call a meeting. Maybe we turn this around. It could be even a week.
Mm-hmm.
We share it. We say we'd love your comments, and folks even come to the vote, and we could get this done within 2 weeks. So I'm just putting that out there. Now, if we had a full, I could be voted down, of course, but I'm saying I'm one of, right at the moment, it appears 3. So that makes me perhaps more of a decisive vote, but I didn't ask to be that. I'm just voicing what I think sounds reasonable, and I'm hearing you loud and clear. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would, given what you've said, I think we're going to have to postpone, but I don't want to postpone more than 1 or 2 weeks. If we get a discussion with the rest of the council, and we could be up for a Zoom call meeting a week from now.
Yeah.
And vote on it. That's a question. Before that, I want to hear from you. You said yes, I think. You would kind of.
Yeah. I mean, if we can.
Here's Andrew.
I think the point of this for me is to take advantage of all of the resources, including the input, if as that is an important aspect. But I want to make sure that we are postponing this vote in order to get the necessary input, that input is there.
Well, not the
They
input,
are-
we're getting the output. This is for informing people.
Right, but that the information is available in an easy way to have access to. And I'm not convinced that I'm not sure how we're going to do that.
We'll come up with something.
Yeah, well, let me just, I want to put on the record as well. If I felt that a 2-week delay was going to jeopardize our ability to successfully execute this
Okay.
project, my outlook would be different. Because I
It
feel
will throw-
strongly about what has been done historically, what data has been presented, the hard work, but also recognizing this is something that we need to do. With that said, given the size of the capital investment and that there are questions or just the need for information, unless there's a compelling reason that folks can say, 2 weeks is going to put the kibosh on this, then I'm reluctant
Right.
to say that I can't wait 2 weeks for us to do a narrative of all of this.
I'll give you 1 week.
1 week.
Michael, 1 week?
But you have other council members who may have joined, so they may feel differently.
There's
Yeah.
Andrew.
I don't want to.
And Andrew, are you hearing us?
I am hearing you. Unfortunately, I'm at an event and it's really loud. So can you tell me just explain to me what this vote would be on?
Okay, we were about to vote on the paving contractor. And several residents have suggested, Klaus Lorch in particular, that we delay this so that there could be more community engagement on it. Jeff kind of agrees with that. And since we were only 3 here and we could not pass it without Jeff's assent, we were considering delaying it for a week or so. Susan seems to be on a call, but she's mute, and I don't think she's hearing us. So the question right now is, do we delay the vote on a contractor for 1 week?
And we could vote outside of a council meeting in a week?
Well, we would have to have a council meeting. We could do a Zoom meeting for 10 minutes, have a publicly announced meeting, meet via Zoom, vote on this one issue, and then be done with it.
Okay. I mean, I'm not quite sure what a week will do in this instance, but if it allows for members of the community who feel like they have not been part of this process or have not, dialed into our council meetings in the past, and that allows them to voice their opinions and engage more, a week is not going to be the end of the world here.
Okay.
Yeah, and Andrew, I appreciate it, and we apologize that you've called in at something that is very busy for you. But I think what we're just saying here is there are folks who've expressed they don't have a lot of good understanding of this. And I'm not saying that the council members per se are not ready to vote. It's just the reasonableness of, I think we've shared a lot of information today that was kind of hard for folks to find or synthesize. And that it would be helpful, considering this could be the top 2 or certainly 3 capital project in terms of magnitude of budget that we will have undertaken in the history of our village, that the extra week of just sharing a narrative of just all the history, but also the process of what's undertaken could only help us with the idea that a week isn't going to kibosh the project, but it would perhaps provide some more comfort to residents. You don't have to respond to that. I'm just giving you a little context there.
Understood. I get it.
Okay. with that understanding, we will not vote on that tonight. We will take it up at a separate publicly announced meeting a week, possibly a week from today. We'll have to check schedules. And we'll get on with it. Lynn. Okay.
Schlafen.
Okay.
You're on, Lynn.
Yeah. The report that you got, and you cited how unsafe the sidewalk was. I've walked it many times. Now they've got the new sidewalk across the street, so when I walk, I go across the street and then come up here. The new sidewalk starts at Bradley and extends, and it's across the street here. The look for our side of the sidewalk is basically an accident waiting to happen. And the question I have is, I guess it's state property, or the state's been so involved in this, that if an accident was to happen and somebody was to file suit, you know, this sort of a shotgun effect, would Martin's Addition be exposed if the sidewalk had not been repaired? And
I don't know the answer to that. Do you have any sense of that?
No, Ron, do you want to?
Ron, if there were an accident on the sidewalk, but right now at this point, the Martin's Addition has not been responsible for it. Would Martin's Addition potentially be liable?
And why, Arthur, do you say the village is not currently responsible for the sidewalk?
Well, are we? The state has taken responsibility on the state road. So is the village responsible for it, even though we have not done the maintenance or it's on the state highway?
Well, under state law, transportation article, even on state highways where the state installs the sidewalk, the statute in the transportation article provides that the municipality is responsible for maintenance after the initial installation, unless the state decides they want to maintain it. And then under common law, the municipalities do have the duty to keep the rights of way under their jurisdiction safe for pedestrian and motorist travel. That said, liabilities never black and white. The village would frankly have to be aware of a defect and have done nothing to address it, most likely to be liable. Just
Good. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Len. Okay, let's move on.
Say one thing, Michael. I just wanted to share. I mean, I could appreciate from your perspective frustration, and this has no bearing on you whatsoever. You've managed this exceptionally, and so it's not like all of a sudden we're going back. I think we just have a confluence of, for various reasons, we've had we're a couple council members short tonight. And, we've heard, I think, some very important feedback of where we can pull together and share information. I don't see this as something where all of a sudden we're undoing, 6 or 8 years, but I just see this as, a reasonable, let's get it on the books for next week. And we could work together to pull together some information and, we'll hold the vote. Okay. And I know that you shared some information to the contractors about when the timing, but I think it's reasonable to just say that, we're going to do it when there's a full quorum of the council. And this evening was where, for circumstances beyond our control, not everyone could meet. So we'll all meet together as one council next week. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda.
Can I request a 5-minute break?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back in session and continuing with the agenda.
Hey, Arthur?
Yes, sir. Hi, Susan.
Hi, I have been struggling for the last 45 minutes to, I was calling in because I've been in transit,
Oh,
calling in on my phone, unmuting repeatedly to no avail. But I obviously, as you as well, have taken a deep and long-standing interest and would not miss this meeting. And of course, I did support and do support the proposal as recommended. I will be out of town next week as well, but if everyone wants to meet either next, that's fine. I just want you to know I've been here and I care about it, and of course I do support it.
okay. We will do if you can do a Zoom meeting next week.
I will, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
It will
I
be
tried
publicly
tonight.
announced.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm fine. I'm glad you finally worked it
Yeah,
out.
well, I finally arrived at my destination and got on my computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good, thanks. Okay, so we will move on to the next agenda item, which is, what is it?
The manager's report.
Okay,
The manager report is on page 5. There are 10 bullet pointed items here. I'll just go through them really quick, and if anyone has any questions, feel free. The first one is, now that the attainable housing strategies from the county have been kind of watered down and resulted in the zoning text amendment that we're all aware of, ZTA 2502. With the council approval, I would like to end date the contract with our land use attorney, Michelle Rosenfeld.
right.
Ron Bolt and I have discussed this, and we'll be closely monitoring the state's activity over this next session next year to see if any other additional housing things arise. But for now, I feel like we're in a good place, and that struggle with housing policy at the county and state level seem to be behind us for now. Moving on to other problems.
Wait a minute, there was one, Ron, there was a letter that Village signed on to make some minor amendments that has gone out now. I think that has been approved by many of the villages down here. Can you fill us in on just very quickly on that?
Yeah, sure. So to summarize, ZTA 2502, the Workforce Housing Bill, was passed, and that authorizes multifamily structures in the R60, R90 zones, and some other zones as well. And at that time, it was noted that the rules on whether lots could be consolidated under that workforce housing optional method of development, and that issue was set aside to be addressed in a different part of the county code. So the zoning text amendment amended chapter 59, which is where all the zoning rules are. And then after that was adopted, SRA 2502 was introduced to set forth the rules on what the lots can look like through subdivision in chapter 50 of the code. And there was a bit of a kerfuffle because a lot of folks had understood based on early presentations that there wouldn't be any lot consolidations, and then it was explained that as the ZTA was written, you could consolidate. And so Andrew Friedson directed legislative counsel to draft amendments to make clear in the subdivision rules that there ought to be a limit on how many lots you can consolidate in order to combine lots into a big lot and then potentially develop that with apartment buildings and the like. And the proposal was to allow 3 lots, up to 3 lots, to be consolidated or combined or assembled. And the letter that the municipalities signed suggested, instead of the county council going with a 3-lot maximum, having concerns that a 3-lot maximum could result in very large lots on Connecticut Avenue, for example. Because although your neighboring jurisdictions on Connecticut are in the R60, R90 zone, and in the R60 zone, the minimum lot size is 6,000. Lots are actually a lot bigger than that on Connecticut, some up to 20,000. So the consolidation of 3 lots could actually result in very large parcels on Connecticut. So the proposal from the municipalities was to suggest, instead of saying up to 3 lots, say up to 3 times the lot size, the standard lot size for this respective zone. So R60, it's 6,000, so it'd be 6,000 times 3 instead of 3 lots. So if you've already got a lot that's 20,000, you couldn't consolidate that one. And testimony was provided 2 days ago, and it seems like the suggestion has been well received. It's going back to the planning staff for comments, and yeah, we'll let you know where it goes from there. I know there are currently no applicable corridors in Martin's Additions boundaries. So this workforce housing bill does not apply in Martin's Additions today, but may in the future if the county decides to change the rules.
Right. Good. Thank you. There's something
Sure.
to be written. Okay. Your manager's report.
Okay, so that's the first issue. So with council approval, I'll go ahead and end date that relationship.
So I move that we approve to
I-
end the contract with Michelle.
I second.
Aye.
Okay.
I,
It was amazing.
And
Thank you.
Susan,
She's cool.
Thank you, Susan.
Susan says aye.
Yeah.
Thank you,
We
Susan.
do it with gratitude.
Right.
I made that vote, that critical vote.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, next.
Okay, point number 2, I have attached the administrative calendar starting on page 6 of today's packet. This idea to put together an administrative calendar of all the kind of things that we need to hit throughout the year was Jeff's idea originally a couple years ago. So it's something I've kind of carried forward. And you'll see on my copy, if you look over here, I've put a check mark next to everything in July, everything in August, and half the things in September already, including we have started the VMA audit. The council meeting tonight is now halfway done, and we have appointed the village volunteers. And the other 2 things I'll talk about.
Okay.
So that administrative calendar is there. You can keep that throughout the year and just kind of remind yourself what we're working on every month. So I think that's helpful.
We're gonna have to up your game on the emojis next time. So,
Okay.
For 4th of July, maybe some fireworks there.
Okay,
but
we'll see what we can do.
This is looking great.
The thing that goes down.
Yeah, we'll see if AI can up my emoji
Yes,
game.
definitely.
Betty.
Okay.
Okay.
And 3, the committee volunteers I just mentioned have all been appointed. Everyone needs to come in and sign their oath of office and their conflict of interest form. And once they have done that, all the committee volunteers, then we will host our annual onboarding for volunteers. This is where we go through the committee guidelines. We go over, Ron does a section about the Open Meetings Act, the Public Information Act that applies to committees, of course. And we'll have a quick discussion about ethics and our expectations from the village office for these different committees. I'm asking all of the committees this year to plan out when their meetings are going to be for the entire year. Right up front, tell me when you're going to meet. Let me put it on the calendar, and then please don't change it. That will save us a lot of sending out polls last minute to try to figure out who can meet when. Just pick a day, the first Wednesday of every month, whatever it is, and that's your day that you meet every month. And that would make things a lot easier this year. So,
Quick question.
sure.
Is there a date for the volunteer orientation?
Not yet. We will need to schedule that.
Oh, you're waiting for the schedule.
And I will need to figure out when works for everybody, all the committee members and all of the council members. Not that that's mandatory. If someone misses,
Yeah,
it's
I'd wanna
okay.
go
I can
there.
record it or whatever, but we definitely want to get as many people there as possible.
Okay.
Point 4, we did open and close the time period for call for native tree plantings. That's one of our most successful programs. Last year, we planted well over 30 trees. This year, we got requests for 18 private trees, and then we have additional 3 right-of-way trees we will be replacing that come down over the last year. As I mentioned, we have started the financial audit that is underway. 6, I have begun working with the University of Maryland Institute of Governmental Services and Research, again, to conduct a VMA annual survey. We have already throughout the year, I've been keeping track of the questions that we say we're going to add. So there's a couple questions that we've already said, and there was a couple more tonight, I heard. So we will be drafting, I'm meeting with them next week to go over the draft, and then I will be running that by the council to get your all review of that, like the first week of October, I think first week of October. You all will have a chance to give your feedback related to those questions.
The feedback, does that include if we want to introduce a new question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not
yes.
here, but at that time.
At that time, yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you have a question, you can give it to me as well, any time.
Okay.
But because I'll be drafting it tomorrow, but including some of the things I've heard, like traffic calming. We've done traffic calming measures, and half the people love it, half the people hate it. So it's like, what do you do with that? But we've done surveys and we've done stuff before. But I'm going to ask this year: do you want more additional traffic calming measures on your street specifically?
Mm-hmm.
And then I can cross tab that with which street people say they live on.
Mm-hmm.
So then I can get a poll number for people on each street. So if there's one person on Chestnut that wants speed bumps, we're not overvaluing his statement, because we can compare it and see that there's 10 other people that don't want speed bumps on Chestnut. So having that data will be really helpful. Mm-hmm. So there was that question, and then traffic calming, and there was a solar grant program proposal that we had, and at that time we said maybe this is something we should ask in the survey if this is something people would want. So we'll figure out how to ask those questions, as well as any others that people have. And then a couple questions from last year will drop off as well. Like we asked about the zoning text amendment or the attainable housing strategies last year. Obviously that's not relevant anymore, as that's now settled law. Moving on from the survey, leaf bags have been ordered. The first day of fall is Monday. It is still summer. I don't care what the weather feels like outside. It is still summer. The first day of fall is on Monday, and I will be receiving thousands of leaf bags here. This is a program that
how many altogether this year?
Thousands?
Yeah, thousands of leaf bags. We'll give you a few, yeah. So a little history on this project. When I came here, we were contracting it out and paying someone about $5,000 to deliver 50 leaf bags to every single house, 330 properties in the village. We got a lot of feedback that people weren't using those leaf bags. And of course, we encouraged people to leave the leaves and be environmentally friendly and help the insects by letting your yard decompose where it is. As a gardener, as a master gardener now, I can say that. And then we found people weren't using that many leaf bags. So leaf bags were literally rotting in people's garages and filling up closets and stuff. So we decided to say, instead, you have to opt in. If you want leaf bags, you have to request them. And then we find people come by and just pick them up. So we created a spreadsheet here. You can come in and check out your leaf bags and sign your name for your share of leaf bags. And then, or if you want us to deliver them, we still will. Instead of contracting that out, I now do that myself with the help of Wayne, our contractor. And that has brought the cost of this entire project down from about $8,000 a year. This year we'll spend $1,080. So we've cut that by
Mow your leaves.
about 8%.
I do. I always do.
There you go. Mow your leaves.
Mow your leaves.
The less leaf bags you use, the better it is for the environment and the cheaper it is for the village.
I have leaf bags from when we first moved here that are in my basement that are collectibles.
Oh, I don't know if they're any more valuable or not. But, so that's the leaf bag thing. And then directly related to that is leaf vacuuming. That is, we do hire a contractor, Rolling Acres, to come and clean the streets 3 or 4 times over the course of the fall. And that will start the week of October 13th will be our first cleaning. There is a change this year because the county, as many of you may know, has outlawed gas-powered blowers. That does affect our contractors as well as yours. So if your companies are using gas-powered blowers, please tell them to stop. They will be getting reported to the county, and there is a warning process and then a fine will process on the start. If you want to report someone who is using a gas-powered blower in the neighborhood, you can take a picture of the truck with their contact information, and you can send it to your county representative, Andrew Friedson, until they create a process for reporting those successfully. That is what I've been told to do by county council staff. So that will start on October 13th.
Let me just mention that the street cleaning serves 2 functions. It's a safety feature for the street. You don't want to jam on your brakes on wet leaves and go sliding across. And also it can clog up all the drains, the storm drains.
Yeah.
So there's good reasons. It's not just for aesthetic purposes. There are safety and water drainage issues involved.
Yes. There's no need to rake all your leaves to the street, though, because you can just leave them right where they are. It's in the name, leave the leaves. Number 9 here is second to bottom. We will be receiving a variance application from 7209 Delafield Street. That is for an addition on the back of a current house that is non-complying with our side yard setback requirements. They have submitted that application, and we are just asking for a couple of things to finalize that as a finalized application. And then we will have to notify the neighbors and schedule a variance hearing with the council. I think we have to wait. Ron can check me on this. We have to wait 10 days before a variance hearing, or 2 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, public notice. We need 10 days public notice before the hearing.
Got it. So we'll issue a public notice, wait 10 days, and then have a variance hearing. And then the last thing here is I have been doing some professional and personal development. I have completed my Master Gardener program, as I told you about over the summer. And I've also just been enrolled in the Connecting Our Region Executives core program through the Leadership Montgomery program. We just had our first retreat last week. Very interesting county executives from the hospital system, the education systems, from a lot of healthcare people, private equity people, businesses in Silver Spring. And we're having some very interesting conversations about what's happening around the county right now. And there was people from public utilities, there was people from the county council's office, a lot of really interesting people in my cohort. So I think that's going to be beneficial to me personally, but also to you all, as I start to pay attention to what's going on around us in our little bubble here. And then I'm also will be attending my annual conference of city and county managers at the end of October. And yesterday I had the opportunity to attend the Montgomery County and Casey Trees Tree Summit in Silver Spring. That was a very interesting conference, day-long conference there about our urban tree canopy and what we can do to further those projects. We're ahead of the game. As you'll know, we're a tree city for I think 16 years now. So that concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Good.
Just to correct what I previously said, it's 20 days under the code. We post the property and issue notice to adjoining and confronting owners at least 20 days before the hearing.
Okay, so we'll schedule it maybe even for the next council meeting.
Could be.
Yeah. Okay.
So they have the application in?
they submitted the application, but the plans weren't quite up to, like, the plans didn't show the measurements that they need and didn't specify which section of the code they were applying for a variance from and things like that. So
Okay.
they're editing that and they'll resubmit.
Okay. Good. Okay, we have gone. Now the next thing is the village market, Brookville Market.
Yes.
Joe.
Joe and Josie have sold Brookville Market, if you weren't aware, after serving the village for a very long time, including through the pandemic. This was Andrew's idea, who is Andrew, looks like he's online. This was Andrew's idea originally to create some sort of certificate or thank you from the village council and from the village for all their years of service and to the village and the neighborhood. So if the council would like to vote to do that and direct me to go ahead and create something, I have started to draft something.
We have some. Oh, good.
So we can play with this, but if you all want to just tell me to go ahead and do this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
I'll
Susan.
move. Yeah, I'll move to proceed with that certificate.
Okay. Second that. Yes, we all vote to proceed.
And that'll eventually be presented in like a frame or.
Yeah. And I'm actually not sure where they're living, so I'm gonna have to track them down to hand this to them. Cool. Or mail it to them. Maybe there's a chance.
By the way, Michael, Joe told me that he's sticking around in the transition period. I'm not sure how much longer in September, but he's still around, I think. So.
Oh, thank you, Andrew.
But if you hurry, you don't have to do any legwork to find him.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'll walk it over there.
Walk it over. Okay. Next, we have some legislation to contemplate here. To make our village code compatible with the state code.
Yes, for this, I'm asking for the council just to direct me and Ron, tell me what to do, please. Related to two things with the code. Ron can jump in here anytime. There's two things with the code we know need to be updated. On top of the fact that there's a stormwater task force working right now to provide recommendations, which will probably impact the code as well. So there's another set of recommendations for edits to the code coming. But in the meantime, we know there's some things we need to clean up, including the state has passed minor changes to our ADU, that's accessory dwelling units. That's when people turn their garages into grandma cottages or Airbnbs, those types of things. We know by next August, we need to update our code to come in compliance with the state law, the updated state law from this last session. So we know there's that, and then we know we have some edits of our own.
Right. So Ron, you have some edits that you have come across over the years, that small things.
Yeah, we can do that as well. Periodically, we do a technical corrections ordinance where we tweak the code based on lessons learned. And we can do that at the same time that we address the new ADU.
Right. So we'll have an omnibus municipal code revision.
Yeah.
Good.
Exactly. And then we'll do that separately from whatever the stormwater task force recommends down the road. Okay. So we'll start drafting that and have it ready for maybe an introduction at some point, and then a final vote.
Good.
That's how that would take. So it's going to take several months to get through that entire process, but that needs to happen during this fiscal year to be ahead of that deadline.
Then the next thing is the approving the minutes from the last meeting from last month. I've looked them over. They look good to me. I will move to approve the minutes from last month. We have a second here.
Approved, Jeff.
Everyone approves. Good. Then the treasurer's report.
Excellent. I will.
We have a lot of money in the bank.
We're doing well. I think one thing to point out, and thanks for the color printing, Michael, and for our guests. So if you see this, you see some red. And
you should thank Aaron for that. I think
a big shout out, Aaron. Yeah. So just putting it out there is for those who may be looking at this, for the first time or haven't looked at it that often, we get our tranches of income sporadically. So this is done on a monthly basis. So that's why on a particular month, particularly this time of year, you may see some things where income is a bit under, but then we'll get tranches that come in at periodic times where then we're way over. So that's nothing to be concerned about. But as Arthur had mentioned and others, is we're in good shape, right? I mean, we've got reserves of over 6 million, but just putting in perspective, 1.5 of that has been always targeted towards these capital improvement projects that I know that we're eager to move forward on, and we'll have a vote on next week together. And, the other things, just putting in perspective, we did have, I mentioned this last time, at the end of the last council and fiscal year, but we had a lot of sweeteners, right? We had the ARPA, and we had also the interest rates have been high. So we've really enjoyed a lot of bump. But the thing is, all good things don't always last, or they don't perhaps come in as big, packages. So we expect that probably there'll be dips. We did see, for example, some announcements by the Fed and others. So, there'll be perhaps some drops there, and the sweeteners. So, but we're in good shape. And the other news is, Arthur, please confirm, we have the lowest property tax rate in the county or state?
In the state.
In the state.
Yeah.
So that's something.
The reason is that we get most of our money from the state income tax. An automatic 17% of what residents pay flow to the municipalities. And we have some very well-heeled people in our community. Thank you, everybody, who are paying your income tax. Much of that is capital gains. So if the market collapses, our revenues can also collapse. This did happen my first year on the council, and the revenues completely collapsed during that was 2000, after the 2008 recession. And we had to raise our property tax to cover it. So something to keep our eye on, and it may not last forever.
So I'll end there with just one caveat, is we do have a committee working on, water and groundwater. And so we recognize that there are some investments there for us to make for the safety of our residents. So, we have two sizable capital projects. But again, if you look at the historical reserves, whether it's emergency or investment reserves, these have been accounted for as long as I've been on the council, for well over 6 years. And I'm sure Arthur and Susan could comment that it's probably for over 10 years.
Well, our auditors have recommended what we call the emergency reserves to have at least a year's operating money set aside. So we can operate if we lose our money entirely.
With that, we're in good shape.
Okay, good.
Resident comments.
So we are at the end of our scheduled activities, and then we see. I'm really surprised at the number of residents who have hung around this long. Do we have any more comments from residents at this time? Ron, I think you can go home. Oh, you are home. You can go to bed. Good night.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
So it looks like we do not have resident comments at this time. So given that, any comments from my council colleagues? Susan, you can go to bed or wherever you are. Andrew, you can go back to your party, and I will convene this meeting.